Welcome to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. Let's face it, we're all aging. And if we're fortunate enough to have our parents with us, they're aging too. So if you're like me, you have a career, a personal passion, a family, two aging parents, and an 18-year-old cat. Today's show is about being prepared for the challenges of aging and dealing with aging parents. I'm joined by Tina Tehranchian, a certified financial planner and senior wealth advisor at Assante Capital Management Ltd. Tina, welcome to Empowered. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Great to be here.
So this is a question that comes up in many of my conversations with my girlfriends. Who will look after me when I can't look after myself?
It's a very good question. And when you think deeply about it, I think it's the younger you that should be looking after yourself, because you can hope that family or friends are going to be there for you, but you never know what people's life circumstances are. If you have a partner, is that partner going to be in the right health situation to be able to help you out? If you have children, are they going to have time? Are they going to be in the same city even where you live to be able to help you? So it would be ideal to be able to rely on family and friends, but you should always have a backup plan. And I think the best backup plan is to assume that it's the younger you who has to look after you. So you need to save up for that eventuality. You have to make sure that you're going to have the financial resources that even if none of your loved ones are living close to you or are able to help you, you're going to be able to hire people to look after you.
And that's really important, saving for your future self. Absolutely. But then there's a question of who will look after my aging parents when they can no longer live independently.
Yes, that is definitely on the minds of everybody over a certain age who has aging parents. And again, family situations are different. Sometimes you may be able to rely on a sibling who may help out with the care of the parents. But at the end of the day, again, my philosophy is always having a plan B and making sure that even if none of the family members are available or able to help with the care of the parents, that plans are put in place, whether it is hiring people to look after them at their own home and allowing them to age in place, or finding the right retirement home or assisted living place for them to live in, so that in the event that family and friends, again, are not going to be available, you are going to have options. Because at the end of the day, someone needs to look after aging parents.
Yeah, it's true. So with dementia and Parkinson's ramping up, when is the best time to have that conversation about long-term care planning with your parents? Because I know a lot of parents will never want to leave their home. That's their sanctuary. They love living when they're living. So how do you have that conversation and when?
It is a tough conversation to have. Obviously, nobody wants to think about getting old and losing their independence, but it's happening all around us. And I think the sooner that conversation starts in a family, the better the prospects for proper planning. And one of the best segues for starting that conversation is to talk about other friends that you know who have faced that situation where parents suddenly got sick and they couldn't look after themselves. It happens all the time. I'm sure it happens to you when you talk to your friends. Every other day when I'm, having meetings with my friends, the topic comes up. So that's a good segue to start the conversation with your parents and say, this happened to my friend's parents. What are your thoughts about it? What if something like this happens? What would be the ideal situation for you? Because a lot of times we assume things about our parents, but sometimes we're surprised when we directly ask them the questions. The answers might be very different from what we have been assuming.
You're right. We never should make assumptions, especially when we're not in that person's shoes or know exactly what they're thinking about. So when we come back, we will discuss more about aging parents and aging ourselves as well. So please don't go away. Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. On today's episode, are you prepared for the challenges of aging and aging parents? Tina, before we left, we were talking about trying to figure out with your parents and not assuming. Now, this is another sensitive question. Do your parents have the financial resources to support themselves if they need long-term care?
Yes, and that's another tough conversation because unfortunately, talking about money is almost a taboo for Canadian families. I think it's easier for Canadian families to talk about sex than to talk about money. But it's a very crucial conversation to be had, especially when there are aging parents. And again, it's all a matter of framing, finding the right time to talk about it, and making sure your parents understand that your main concern is to make sure that they're looked after in the best possible way. And for that to happen, financial resources are needed. If they have the resources, fine. If they don't, then you and the rest of the family will have to discuss it and have to find ways of making those resources available. So as long as they understand that this is a conversation you're having in their best interests, hopefully they will be more open and share more information with you.
So how do you have that conversation then of, what your parents' wishes are when it comes to long-term care? Because a lot of people are afraid to broach that conversation.
Yes. So again, I think one of the ways of starting that conversation is again talking about experiences of friends, other family members. It can be very eye-opening when you talk to people who have gone through that experience of funding the care of an aging parent, whether it's hiring PSWs to come home and look after their parents or finding assisted living space. It can be extremely expensive, especially in a city like Toronto. So talking about those experiences and what the real numbers are can be very sobering. And it's good information, not just for aging parents, but for other siblings. It makes them think about what's on the horizon and why the whole family should be concerned about how the parents or the family have to come up with those financial resources.
And sometimes families don't agree. There's a lot going on with many families. What about those that have parents that just want to age in place, don't want to hear about going to a home, don't want to hear about having personal care workers coming into the house? How do you deal with that?
Well, it happens a lot. Obviously, people who've been living independently all their lives want to live independently for as long as possible. And I'm a big proponent of aging at home for as long as possible. But sometimes it's not possible. The care gets too expensive or too complicated to coordinate. And other options need to be explored. So I think when you're dealing with aging parents, number one is finding out what their real wishes are. Number two, you try to accommodate those wishes as much as possible. And when the time comes that whether physically or financially it's not possible to accommodate those wishes, then that's the time to have that tough conversation and say, Mom or Dad, this is not sustainable. Either it's putting too much stress on me and my family, or we just don't have enough resources to have a 24-hour care at home for you. We have to look at other options. And most people are rational. They may get emotional at first, but they will come around. And I've seen even in my own family, we had a situation where an aging relative who was very independent, fiercely independent all of her life, suddenly became very frail and needed care. And as a family, we found a live-in caregiver for her. And she was very much against the thought of having someone, a stranger, as she called it, living with her and looking after her did not appeal to her at all.
Hold that
But
thought,
once we
Tina.
had
It didn't appeal to her at all. We'll be right back. We've got to go to commercial break. Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. Today's episode, are you prepared for the challenges of aging and aging parents? Now, Tina, before we went to commercial break, you were talking about someone in your family, and they didn't want to appeal to her at all. Like, she just wanted to do her own thing. Can you please explain it?
Absolutely. She was totally against the idea of having a live-in caregiver, which she absolutely needed at that point in her life. But her children talked to her and convinced her that that was the best option. She grudgingly agreed to it. And after a few months, she actually grew so close and so dependent on that caregiver that she became like another child to her. So do not give up when parents, do not go along with what is rational at the beginning. Most human beings are rational and they will come around. They'll know that there's no other choice.
I think the thing too is a lot of people, when they get older, they're set in their ways and they don't like change. And
Yes.
with that whole not liking change, they don't want strangers coming into their house. These strangers are there to help them. But in their mind, they're coming into their home and their space. So, good words of wisdom to just listen and just keep prodding and keep doing it until it happens, because it's for their own health and wealth, nobody else's.
Absolutely. And then as time goes on, unfortunately, as they age, they will get more frail.
Yeah.
And that frailty also is sobering, because you realize that as much as you want to be independent, you just can't. Your body is not going along. So you have to accept the care in one form or another.
So I just had a friend who turned 80, and she said that when she turns 100, she wants to dance. So I said, I will get a tiara for you and we will dance on your 100th birthday. But what I want to ask you is, what is your vision for your life when you're 85?
That's a very good question. You know what? When I'm 85, as long as I have my mobility, I can move around, I have my vision, and I can read, I'm going to be happy. And as long as I have my friends and family around me, because social life, I think, is a big component of happiness when you age. I have a client who's 95 years old, great shape, and she credits her long life and longevity to her friends, because she has a great social network that keeps her going, keeps her motivated. So as long as I can get up in the morning and feel motivated, I'm happy when I'm 85.
So now I'm going to go to the other portion that makes you happy as well. We both are financial literacy advocates. And it makes us happy to help people with their lives, with money, and help guide them out of debt. How do you prepare in order to have the resources to look after yourself if you need home care or facility care?
That is a very good question, Elizabeth. And that is something that has to be built into every financial plan. Every one of my clients, when we do financial planning for them, we factor in the possibility and the scenario that the last 10 years of their lives, they may need home care or facility care. And depending on the level of luxury that they want to have, at that point in their lives, we build that into that scenario and into that budget to see whether they have the resources to provide for that. Sometimes they have more than enough resources. Sometimes, the plan may show that they're going to run out of money at 85, which is not a good scenario. It means that they will need to save more at this point, or maybe decrease their expectations. Maybe they should be looking at retiring and living somewhere cheaper during retirement to be able to stretch their dollars more. But that type of planning is crucial. And the sooner you do it, the more prepared you're going to be for the eventuality.
So when we come back, we're going to talk about how to include close family members. We're going to talk about a little bit more about aging and preparing the elderly. And, you and I, we do have family that are aging. So we're going to talk about that some more. So please don't go away. We'll be right back with Tina Tehranchian. And she's going to talk about the financial plans as well that we need to go forward. So please don't go away. Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. Today's episode, are you prepared for the challenges of aging and aging parents? And I'm joined by Tina Tehranchian, who's a certified financial planner and senior wealth advisor at Assante Capital Management Ltd. But Tina, I've got to ask the question, how do you go about putting together a financial plan for somebody? Because not everybody has Tina in their life.
Well, the whole process could seem daunting to a lot of people because we have to look at every aspect of their finances. But you have to keep in mind that it is done in steps. So information gathering is key. Knowing the client, knowing them deeply, what is their desire, what are their goals for their life, for their retirement, and building that into the plan is key. So once the information is gathered and all the human factors as well as the financial information is gathered, then it's a matter of working out different scenarios for them. Everybody has questions, should I pay down my debt first? Should I build up my RRSPs? Should I get my CPP at 65 or 70? So these are all sorts of things that we can answer by running different scenarios. And of course, as I said, risk management is very important too, both to make sure that the plan is stress tested in case you die prematurely, in case you get disabled during your lifetime, in case you have critical illness, and in case you need long-term care the last 10 years of your life. So all of those risks have to be looked at. And then from an estate planning standpoint, it's a matter of projecting what the tax liability of the estate will be, because a lot of people would like to look at ways of mitigating or eliminating taxes on their estate, whether to make sure maximum amount is transferred to the next generation or to the next generation and the charities that they want to support.
Yeah, that's really important. So how do you prepare in order to have the resources to look after yourself? If you, I'd already asked you that question before. It's important. It's extremely important to have a plan. How do you include the close family members who will be involved in your care? Because a lot of people don't talk. There are families that don't talk at all.
Unfortunately, families do not talk about money. I personally do encourage families to talk about money. I always encourage my clients, when we have their financial and estate plan ready, I say, why don't we have a family plan? And feel free to invite your family members so they are on board and they know what's going on in your life. Not everybody will take me up. Some people are very private about their financial matter. They don't want their children to know. But even if they let their children know from a high level standpoint, especially from an estate planning perspective, what their wishes are, I think that's a very positive step too. In terms of siblings who ultimately need to look after aging parents, that is a conversation I think that should start between siblings first. They have to agree on some principles, and then find the right time and place to start the conversation with their parents.
So, Tina, last question. We've got 15 seconds left. What's the biggest risk to our financial security? Is it the stock market crash or the cost of long-term care?
Well, I think a lot of people are very scared of a stock market crash during their retirement. History has shown that yes, stock markets do crash every few years, and then they recover. Typically, it takes anywhere from 3 to 6 years, sometimes a lot longer, for them to recover. But long-term care is a permanent loss of capital. It can cost anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000 a month, depending on the level of complexity of care that you need if you live in Toronto. And that's a permanent loss. That's never coming back. It's not like the market goes down and comes back. So to me, that is a much bigger risk.
Thank you so much, Tina. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. It's been great talking with you.
You as well. Take care. Tina says the ultimate yardstick of success is having made a positive impact on those you love, your community, and the charities that you support so that you will be missed and remembered fondly when you are gone. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski, and I'm here to empower you and make frugality fashionable. Bye for now.